Nintendo is in a weird place at the moment, so let's talk about it. What's up, nerds, and welcome to Endgame. I'm Hoops4, and today we are going to talk about all things Nintendo, how their current year has been, how their prospects look, how past patterns may affect the future, even the patterns of their game developments. Nintendo could be considered the underdog compared to Sony and Microsoft, but the Switch is still arguably the best console of the generation. Sure, it may not be as powerful as the PS5 or Xbox Series S or X, but it no doubt has its place in the market with a ton of versatility. Still, there are plenty of questions regarding the future of Nintendo and their current state. There's a lot to talk about, so let's go ahead and enter gaming.
Enter gaming.
So there's not really a good place to start with this one, so let's just start again. Nintendo is in a really weird place right now, but it's hard to explain. I've been playing Pikmin 4 and absolutely loving it. I'm loving it way more than I ever thought I would, and it's just been a great time. It's a typical Nintendo game. A little strange, simple to play, easy to have fun with, but there's a lot of complexity if you know where to look for it and mastering the game's mechanics. But it has brought to my attention a couple of issues that Nintendo may have going forward. The first thing I want to nail down is the hardware, and let's keep going with the Pikmin 4 example. Pikmin 4 is great, and it looks just fine. It looks like a great Nintendo game. However, the load times are upwards of 30 seconds because of how much time it takes to render an entire world on the current hardware. Hopefully, a new Nintendo Switch will help solve this problem for both this game and future games. Since, let's face it, the current hardware is incredibly outdated. The original Switch released in 2017, and we really haven't gotten an updated model since, and that's with the exceptions, of course, of the OLED and the Switch Lite, but neither of them really changed the hardware specs all that much. The Switch Pro got a little more light shown on it during the Xbox and Activision Blizzard merger, and it's rumored to be an early 2024 release window. So hopefully this new hardware is coming sooner than we may think, and it can help fix some of these performance issues. Switch Pro, Switch 2, whatever you want to call it, this brings up another interesting Nintendo-specific problem, and it's that Nintendo kind of has a problem when it comes to their sequel devices or their follow-up devices. And in part, that's because their originals have, in general, sold really well across the board, and a lot of times people don't really need to upgrade. For instance, the DS started with the DS, DS Lite, and DSi, and then by the time they got to the 3DS, it just didn't nearly do as well. And part of that is because the 3D aspect wasn't really a necessity, but just rather a cool feature. So then they ended up rebranding it as the new 2DS and new 3DS and that whole line of handhelds. Another example is to look at the Wii. The Wii is one of the best-selling consoles ever, but then you look at the Wii U and its successor, which is widely known as a total flop, being at the absolute bottom of Nintendo total units sold charts. So, in terms of sequel consoles, history does not exactly bode well for Nintendo in many aspects. All of this to say, whatever the Switch Pro is, it will be curious what direction they take it. See, the safer sequels of the 3DS and the Wii U did very poorly. So what happens if Nintendo swings the pendulum the other way, and they try to be innovative on a sequel? Well, then look at the N64, and that going into the GameCube. The GameCube sold very poorly, it's one of Nintendo's worst selling consoles, and part of that is due to having no launch titles, but then again, people were used to the N64 at that point. So it begs the question, what direction will they go next? A quick request before I continue, if you are enjoying this content, then please consider subscribing to the channel. We are building a wonderful community here at Endgame, and you won't want to miss out. Regardless, history tells us that Nintendo is going to do their own thing. Nintendo is never afraid to try a bold new direction. And so there are a lot of questions worth asking here. Do they try to be innovative again? Like how the Wii was, like the DS for handhelds, like how the Switch was in 2017? Or do they make it an iterative sequel, like adding 3D to the DS or adding the gamepad to the Wii? Do they stick to a handheld only? Do they try to make it only a console? Do they try to keep this bridge between console and handheld like the Switch has been? I'm not sure. Maintaining that balance will be really difficult, and the market today is a lot different than it was in 2017. Now, in the new market of this day and age, there are devices like the Steam Deck and ROG Ally, which didn't exist in the original Switch market. So, how will this affect the new hardware? I mean, these devices are mini computers in your hands, which are way more powerful than the Switch itself. But it's been over 6 years at this point, and it'll be over 7 by the time we actually get any new hardware. So why is it at this point, or I guess at the point in the future, that they will be introducing the hardware? Why at that point in time? As of March 2023, the Switch has sold over 125 million units, which is only behind the DS in total sales for Nintendo devices. And they've been selling really well in 2023 still as well. But the answer doesn't really come with the hardware at this point. Now we need to look at the games. With the release of Pikmin 4, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that was the last main flagship Nintendo series that needed a game on the Switch, at least a native game that is. We have all of the A tiers. Mario had Mario Odyssey on release and Breath of the Wild for Zelda, and now we have Tears of the Kingdom. We have Pikmin 4, we have Splatoon 3. Most of the main Nintendo franchises have their games now on Switch. The Nintendo library is full of them. So in that way, it is time for a new model to get to the next generation of games. So what else do they have on the docket? Well, we know that Nintendo has the next mainline Mario game coming to Switch this fall. It's coming October 20th, but we don't know too much about it other than it's Super Mario Wonder and it's going to be the next 2D entry. So what about the next 3D entry? I mean, it's been since 2017 that we got Mario Odyssey, and yes, we got Bowser's Fury in the meantime. Well, my guess is that it will end up being a launch title for the next Switch, similar to how Mario Odyssey was for this generation. I'm also guessing that we can assume there will be some sort of backwards compatibility or ports coming over for most of the main games from Switch to the next model. So being able to play our games on the next generation will be crucial. I mean, this is backwards compatibility in 2023. Surely we'll be able to do that. Cartridge and downloads. We should be able to play all our games. The Switch has a massive library, so how they're going to manage to pull that into the next generation, I'm going to be really curious to see. We do know that Nintendo has always been pretty helpful when it comes to backwards compatibility. For instance, the original DS models had a slot for Game Boy Advance games. That is really awesome. Hopefully they can do something like this so that they can handle cartridges in the next generation. Even digitally, they've been able to handle, heck, they have Game Boy, SNES, NES games, Game Boy Advance. They have a whole lot of options on the Switch. How much further will they take those catalogs? Because they've been iteratively adding games, but when will we get a full catalog? Or closer to it, that is. Because right now there's also nothing for GameCube or Wii. So I'm going to be curious to see how far will Nintendo take backwards compatibility, especially going into their next generation. So Nintendo's in a weird place, but why? Well, I think after looking at all this, it's because they're kind of in between everything. Their generation hasn't quite lined up with the PS5 and the Xbox Series S and X, and it was also sort of a mid-hybrid console and handheld, so they're in between on that. With the release of Pikmin 4, there's only one main Nintendo game that we know about that's in the incoming, and that's going to be the new Super Mario Wonder. So what's next? What is after that? There's this whole blank slate for Nintendo ahead of us, and all we have are rumors, and they're not even rumors that Nintendo wanted out there. They're just rumors from the Microsoft acquisition because of the Call of Duty thing. So what else is there? What else is next for Nintendo? Well, we can speculate, and speculating based on the past is really difficult, especially in a case like Nintendo, a company that has so many highs and lows. Will it be innovative? Will it be iterative? Will this be a new groundbreaking thing? Or will the next Switch be a next Wii U? We don't really know, and that's kind of why Nintendo's in a weird place, at least from the public eye. Because there's no guessing. There's no way of knowing what Nintendo's going to do next. But we can guess, and that's the best we can do. Thank you all for watching. I'm Hoops4, this is InGame. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on the state of Nintendo, and I'll see you nerds on the next one. Peace. Thank you for watching, right here on InGame. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe for more content.